Undoing tax abuse and other groups are to lead a march against what they call a high fuel tax levy in Pretoria this morning. They've urged Tshwane Metro residents to join the march to the National Treasury starting from Church Square at 10 o'clock. Motorists have been hit by fuel price increases for several months in a row.
The latest hike will come into effect at midnight and will only be 1 cent extra for a litre of petrol. The DA says that if the fuel levy of R5.30 a litre were reduced by 20 cents, or at least 20%, fuel prices could return to around 15 Rand a litre. Speaking earlier on Morning Live, Outer CEO Wayne Duvenage said the organisation is asking Treasury to reduce the high fuel levy by 1 Rand.
It'll take the fuel levy back down to below the 3 Rand, so 2 Rand, I think it's sitting at about 3 Rand 26 cents, around there, 28 cents. So it'll take it to 2 Rand 28 cents. As I said earlier on, that has gone up from 1 Rand 45 cents, the fuel levy component of those two levies, in 2008. 1 Rand 22 cents, sorry, back then. So what we're saying is that had the fuel levy been a Rand lower, it would be far more realistic than where it is today as a result of these massive increases, especially over the last 4 years. Now, that's going to have an impact of reducing the fiscus or the income to government by about 23 billion Rand. So the message is sent to government when they say, and when economists say, well, what does government do about that shortfall? That's exactly what we want them to address. We want them to go and find the money in the maladministration, the inefficiencies that have crept into government over time through all the tax increases, through the corruption that has been taken place. And if government takes a hard look at its own conduct through both national, provincial and local government, so it will find the savings and ease the pressure on the motorist, the consumer, the commuter. These costs are just excessive now, and if we don't do something about putting government under pressure to look at how it can find ways to save money, and one of them is by reducing the fuel levy and getting those savings, then I think as a society we are remiss in holding government to account for its conduct with its citizens, and it's lost its way.
So how then would you suggest to government that money be spent?
Which money?
The 1 Rand that you want reduced, that saving. If government were to take that and perhaps put it back into that pot in Treasury, how would you suggest they spend it?
What it does, it takes the 1 Rand or the 22 billion Rand out of Treasury's pot. It makes Treasury, where it requires that money to fund government now, go back to its various departments to find the savings. And when government starts asking for its citizens or from its citizens less money in taxation, and the fuel levy is a tax, it starts to have to behave itself or conduct itself in a more efficient manner. And that's what we want, because we have a bloated government, we have a government that is inefficient, we have a government that has turned a blind eye towards or turned its eye away from corruption and maladministration. So what we're saying is get your house in order, reduce the expenses, reduce the taxes that you want from your citizens, and one of these ways is to pass that saving on back to the consumer and big business and everybody else by taking 1 Rand out of the fuel levy. It's a very direct way of saying to its citizens, we hear your plight, we hear your pain, and we need to share some of the savings that we gain in maladministration and inefficient government back to society. Through that, you have reduced costs of goods getting to markets. Through that, we can commute to and from work and from our daily lives at a slightly cheaper rate.
But what are the chances that government's going to listen to you?
Well, remember last year in February 2017, when the country went on a protest around Jacob Zuma's sacking of the Minister of Finance, Pravin Gordhan at the time. Of course, he didn't change his decision the next day and say, okay, let me put Pravin Gordhan back in power, into that position. This is about sending a message to government. So we're hoping that they will hear. I mean, it would be extremely fantastic and a great opportunity for government to send a positive message to society by reducing that fuel levy by 1 Rand. But we know they're in a predicament. What we do know is that they will take heed of this call and be very, very cautious as to how they apply increases to the fuel levy going forward.
Well, for the latest on the march, we're joined by our SABC reporter, Patricia Fisagi. Patricia, with about 30 minutes left before the official time given for the start of the march, have people heeded the call to march?
Oh, thank you so much, Desiree, and of course, good morning to our viewers. It is a bit noisy here, so my apologies in advance if I can't hear you properly. But let's talk about the build-up to this much-anticipated march that is supposed to, of course, put the attention on the capital city this morning. Of course, we are at a church square. It is not exactly a march. It's more of a gathering. People will be coming from wherever they're coming, and they will be gathering right here at the church square. So it's more like a mass picket that will be taking place throughout the morning. Of course, expected to start officially at around 10 o'clock this morning. I just want to pan the camera. As you can see, people are already gathered here. Many of them holding placards in terms of course, showing and reflecting their resistance here on the ground, trying to put pressure on government to, of course, come up with measures that will reduce the high fuel price in the country. So, of course, you can see there the build-up is, of course, in momentum here at, of course, Church Square. In terms of the numbers that we will be expecting, we're not sure about that. Of course, last week we heard some of the leaders that are, of course, leading this particular gathering saying that they're expecting thousands of people to convene here. Well, if that's going to happen, well, we'll only have to see. Right now, I don't think we're going to actually get the 1,000 mark. As you can see, we probably have about 100 people gathered here. So we're not sure whether it will be as big as they promised, but it's still early. We expect more buses to, of course, bring people in to try and, of course, swell up the numbers that are gathering here to try and strengthen this particular action here in resistance to the current high fuel price in the country. Of course, we expect various leaders from political parties and, of course, leaders from civil society and the local taxi industry to be at the helm of this particular gathering. We've got the leader of the DA, Mr. Mmusi Maimane, that, of course, will be leading on behalf of his party, the DA. And then we've got Alta that will be represented by Mr. Ben Theron, and we've got representatives of the Freedom Front Plus, and we also expect Mr. Peter Groenewald to also speak on behalf of his, of course, gathering, his members that will be here. And of course, we expect leaders from, religious formations that will also be here. So it seems like it's a mixture of a lot of people from different sectors of society that are gathering here to try and find solutions to the high price of petrol in the country. Desiree, we've been hearing this story repeatedly from various, of course, newsmakers who have criticized the high fuel price in the country. And last week we heard the leader of the DA, Mr. Mmusi Maimane, really emphasizing that he feels that the reason why the fuel price is so high in the country is because of the fuel levy and, of course, the road accident fund that is continuously drawing a lot of tax from the South African pocket, and that he feels can be stopped. So part of this march is to, of course, demand a 20% reduction in the fuel levy, and of course also to stimulate a debate that will later be taken to Parliament, where they will be delving into the issues and see if they can actually force the arm of government to come up with a quicker solution in terms of finding a way to reduce the petrol price that they, of course, claim is affecting every other price in the country. The price of food is high, transport, especially those who are using public transport, taxis, buses, and so forth. So basically, the poorest of the poorest are the highest affected in the country. And that is perhaps at the core of this march today, to say the current fuel price in the country is crippling the economy, and it is bringing South Africans to their knees, and an urgent solution is needed. So, of course, Desiree, as you can see, peaceful gatherings so far. We can see police there. There's a Nyala that is already waiting, just monitoring what's happening. We see a lot of police officers that are already walking around here at a church square. So high police visibility, tight security. We've just seen the leader of the DA, Mr. Musi Maimani. He's already here. He just arrived just a short while ago. And of course, the leader of the Freedom Front Plus is also here. It seems like everybody is here that needs to be here. They're getting into here to lead this particular march. And they hope that it's going to be a peaceful gathering. It is part of why they actually diverted from an actual march and turned it into a gathering. We spoke
Patricia
of the DA last week, and he said they don't want to take responsibility, or rather lead the city into chaos. Hence, they decided to opt for a rather gathering and take a memorandum to Treasury right here behind me.
Well, the background noise is not getting any better, but I just wanted to ask you, the gathering today coincides with another fuel price hike. What conversations have you heard around this eventuality today?
Well, I apologize, Desiree. I really cannot hear what you're saying. The noise is literally blurring out your voice. It's very noisy here. I think let's come back to you a little bit later.
I totally agree. We're going to have to leave that for now. Patricia Fisachi is in Pretoria next to Treasury, where the gathering is expected to hand over a memorandum to Treasury pleading with them to reduce the fuel price levy.
It forms part of